self-proclaimed Afro-optimist. And like many of us in the room, what that really, really, really means is that we are believers, simply believers. We're believers in ourselves, believers in our country, our nation, for God and my country, believers in the continent, but also really, truly believers in our collective humanity. Now, the thing about believing is that a lot of our belief systems are deeply shaped by what we see, what we read, and what we hear. And the media and the creative arts, the creative industries, are deep influencers of this space across the board, whether it's our music, it's our fashion, our film, and etc. Art for a very long time has allowed us to appreciate our past. A Ghanaian novelist called Okeng, really? So he published a book called The Beautiful Ones Have Not Been Born Yet. And this book was quite fascinating because he explored the idea of self-isolation, but also importantly explored the wasted potential of newly independent African states just right after independence, after the colonial era. But also, most importantly, there's something that he said that was so fascinating. He said that Africa's best days were ahead of us, and that Africa's most remarkable stories had not been told yet. Now, these same sentiments cut across most of our literature, with our philosophers, some of our greatest thinkers, including Okot, and they really did, and countless others really, and they really painted this idea that Africa and its potential is just a canvas brimming with so much hope and so much potential if we could only see, right? If we could only see. Now, each and every one of us finds ourselves cut at this kind of crossroads. When you're trying to wonder whether, there's hope for the continent, or we're just like collectively imagining and hoping for a future that may not necessarily be actualized. Now, the idea of the idea that you believe, and if you can truly believe and hope for a better world, then what you're really doing is looking through the lens of what we would call Afro-optimism. Now, you often hear the Africa, the time is now, Africa is the future. Yeah, we often hear that sentiment, and it's really now strongly being shaped by our young people. It's being shaped by our cultural diplomacy, but it's not necessarily being validated by the Western opinion. That energy is percolating from the continent like never before. And based on that, I would just like to take you through some of the ways we can then unlock this Afro-optimistic future. We have recognized that there is a potential. We have recognized that there is this kind of like vibrant hope that we have. In fact, a recent survey published was highlighted that Africa's young people explained and felt that they thought that the continent is at a breaking point of excessive success over the next couple of decades. And how do we actualize that? I'm coming towards. And for me, I'll talk about the tools to then actualize that, and I'll define that as foresight, really, and futurism. What that really means is, for a very long time, we have always assumed futurism to be something fantastical, sci-fi, and there is a bit of a truth to that, and I can just share a little bit of my personal story in that regard, is that film, what we have considered films in the 90s and in the early 2000s, or film over time, has always painted this imagination of a world where we felt that we necessarily couldn't actualize. So technology has always found itself trying to catch up with art. So I always argue that art deeply challenges technology, and technology is constantly trying to keep up with that. In the 1900s, we had some of the futurists like Nikola Tesla, who really gave an imagination of what 100 years from then would look like. And some of that was, he gave a very specific imagination of what we consider the internet today. He also talked a lot about women emancipation. That was futurism by that time. In the 1950s, we saw novelists like Isaac Asimov also write in detail what we call AI today, artificial intelligence. And he built very clear imaginations of a world where there is general artificial intelligence and singularity, where computers or machines, for a sense, take over us. And the key message here is really that, if you do notice, is that artists have always played a very critical role in imagining these futures. Technologists simply try to catch up. In the 1980s, late 1980s and early 1990s, in Uganda here, we saw a massive campaign for early childhood vaccinations against the 6 killer diseases. And then in 1996, we launched the Universal Primary Education System that really asked every child of school-going age to go to school. What was not captured per se was that 18 years or 20 years from that particular time, we would have a workforce, very energetic young people who are looking for sources of livelihood. But the infrastructure was not developed, and the infrastructure was not accommodative to absorb this new skilled people, learned, quite literate, but also that the system was designed in such a way that it aggregated specifically in Kampala metropolitan. So what we see today is Kampala city and its metropolitan, which was designed in the 1930s, was designed to accommodate 300,000 people. Our day population is our day population is about 5 to 7 million, and about 2.5 million as the night population. So the city is choked, right? The city is choked. In other spaces, the discussion that we now need to be having is, where is like Uganda's next capital city? And ideally, cities take 20 to 30 years to be developed. And for us to be able to do that, we need to allow a certain group of people, not necessarily 75%, maybe a 10%, to build for the Africa we want, whether it's 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But there's a group of people who are actually anticipating those challenges and trying to address them ahead of time. We got shocked with COVID. We find ourselves shocked again with unemployment, but the circus remains the same. So I'm so gifted that I find myself so blessed to get to work with really, really, really talented young people who are trying to crack Africa's most pressing challenges today. But what we're robbing from them is that the problems they're trying to solve today are problems that ideally typically should have been solved 40, 50 years ago. And then this generation finds itself also trapped, trying to not really giving itself room to imagine what, let's say, Uganda 2060 will look like. What that also means is that the children who are going to be born after us, our children, our grandchildren, will have to go back generations to try and fix some of those challenges. Now, again, technology becomes a very big instrument. We always talk about it as it's a tool to allow us to leapfrog as a continent. And last year we published what we call Africa's first extended reality report, and it was really talking about where Africa plays in the discussions towards technology evolution, emerging technologies as we go into the future. So if Africa truly is the future, and we are Afro-optimists and we believe it, that means we need to dedicate a large number of our resources, our human capital, to build for that future. The internet as we have it today, the one that we are predominantly using, we are consumers. The world that we're going to in the next 20, 30, 40 years is not going to be the same. And you hear we talk about whether it's the metaverse or Web3 or a lot of it, the dynamics are dramatically going to change. So the power goes back to the creators. So while the current internet, we are consumers and we can be fine with that, the next internet is predominantly for the creators. Now, again, where does Africa participate in all of this? And yeah, so again, where does the continent participate in all of this? Are we equipping ourselves for the future of work? The future of the jobs that will support this new world do not exist necessarily today, and it requires a very different skill. And that is the reason why I really insist that the continent needs a lot more futurists. Those are the people who are going ahead of time to anticipate, not necessarily to predict, and to hold those behind us along this journey. Thank you.